I'm here in Athens again, and I'm currently walking on what was, until like the 1990s, the portion of railroad that was owned and used. Before that, I think one of its predecessor roads used it, but it was in use until a chemical plant further up here ended up closing, and after that they just tore up all the trackage. So I think this was the old, one of the Seaboard Railroad's older railroad grades into Athens. The one over on Pulaski Street that you've seen me frequent, the Abbeville sub, it's still in use. This one was more or less a industrial spur by the time it was finally abandoned. All the trackage from Warnerville to Union Point was already gone by the early 80s. From what I could tell by pictures, the tracks still ran through Crawford until 1982, but were probably pulled shortly after that. Here's the first bridge crossing the Oconee River. The original structure, supposedly, when they demolished it, fell into the river, and it's still mostly down there today. The parts that they just simply couldn't get out. We're now on what would have been one of, I think, 3 bridges that this rail line went over at one time. This is the only one that I guess you could say has been quote-unquote rebuilt. I've already got pictures and video of me walking across it before, but I've got my camera because I want to get pictures of the Trail Creek Trestle before they begin the partial demo or complete demolition of it. Funny thing is, if they had have started this thing about 20 years ago, they could have included the original bridge as it is, but they waited too late. Now they're going to have to demolish them, a good 90% of the original structure, just so they can incorporate what's left, or what may not be enough of the original bridge. Hold on, I've got to get this thing over, it's freezing. Got an overlook here. So yeah, here's the Oconee River, and here's how you can tell this was a railroad bridge. You can see down there, you can see the old abutments for the original railroad bridge that was here, then the concrete abutments from when they built the new railroad bridge, and then the more recent concrete pieces for when they built this bridge to replace it. See, there's another stone pillar there. Nice dog.
Thank you.
Here's the view from the other side. Trail Creek Trestle is right down there. About 10 to 15 years ago, you could actually climb up the side of the embankment, basically up the side of the grade, and you could actually more or less get pictures, unobstructed pictures of the trestle. Now, believe it or not, I think I'm seeing railroad ties down there. Yeah, down there I think are some old railroad ties. Whether or not they're from the railroad grade, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. Some of them. Yep, they are. That's what that is. The railroad ties. I see a tie plate sticking out of one of them right down there, right down in the gully. That's amazing. I did not expect to see that. Look here. Right there. Part of an old railroad tie with steel tie plate for the track still in one piece. That's surprising. I didn't know that was down there. Yeah, continuing the walk towards the second bridge, the only original bridge that still has some parts of it left. I'm sure at one point there was probably milepost markers and signals alongside the right-of-way, but thing is, if they ever had a use for this as a railroad route again, they could easily tear this out and relay the tracks. I mean, yes, it would cost a good bit still to put it down, new ballast, new ties, new rail, but The thing is this trail's already got the right-of-way cleared. So it would cost a lot still, but it wouldn't cost nearly as much in regards to clearing out plants and other debris. But they're wanting this trail to go from Athens all the way to Union Point and return. So mostly the entire right-of-way. And the trestle is just ahead here. So if a train were coming from Athens in the direction I'm heading, it would be going towards Winterville. And this would be the engineer's side. Conductor would be on this side, probably filling out paperwork. And then, of course, if a train was coming from Winterville going to Athens, and if a train was coming from Winterville, the engineer would be facing this way and the conductor would be on the side I'm walking on, if that makes sense. I've actually been meaning to look alongside the grade because, right there's more old railroad ties in the gully. I just noticed them right there. There's one there rotted out. There's probably stuff from the old bridge that the railroad company dumped off to the side of the embankment later on. But yeah, here's the Trail Creek Trestle, and this will be the first time I've ever actually gotten to see it from the top, because before when I tried this, the shrubbery was still growing up all around the bridge, but it's still intact for now. But they're going to start demolishing what's left anytime now. So here it is. Here is the old Trail Creek Trestle, made famous by R.E.M's album Murmur, because this trestle was photographed for the back cover. And this is what it looks like now, 40-something years after they took the picture. Because that photo of it was taken in 1983, and here's the same bridge 40 years later, long after its rail use has ended, and about 10 or 15 years after the band itself has stopped touring. I think they ended what they were doing in 2011. I would have been 10 to 11 years old. But what I heard is they're going to try and demolish where the bridge approached the grade here, and where part of where it would have crossed the road has already been torn down, but they're probably going to tear out a few more feet of that. What they're wanting to do is they're wanting to demolish most of the wooden structure and put a steel arch span in its place. And I think from what I've seen in concepts, they're wanting to keep the center span that has that steel piece right there. They're wanting to try and keep that intact, so at least a tiny fragment of the original bridge still exists. If it were me, what I would do is I'd get a crane out here and I'd try and lift the steel span off and put it on display in the park down there, and maybe have a replica of railroad track put on top of it to show just how they would have laid it on top of this bridge. Because you wouldn't think the railroad tracks would fit on this, but they would, because they had ties that were wide enough. But you can see the grade here, and I tell you, I would not be all that surprised if there was some spikes left behind, like some that had ended up falling down the side of the embankment somewhere. If you had a metal detector or a magnet, you could probably get some. But yeah, this here is it. This here's the bridge. This is the first time I've ever actually been able to see the top of it in person. A guy who did a website covering a lot of the old railroad lines in Athens, ones that have long since been ripped up and some that are still here, had photos that he took of this bridge before it looked anything like this. It was still abandoned, but it was still in a fairly decent shape, because by then it had only been owned by the city for about 8, maybe 10 years. But had they have started this trail then, I bet you they could have used the original bridge, and they would have only had to rebuild the part that went over the road over there, across the gap. But that's then and then now, I suppose. So this is I'm probably going to be one of the last people to get pictures of this thing as it is. And if any of you guys are near Athens or in the area, I recommend doing the same thing I'm doing right now, because this bridge may be here right now today, but it could be gone within the next week or two and that's just the soonest date. You know, they may have it gone in a few days. I personally give it less. I'd probably give it a few hours, depending on when they're going to start tearing it down. So I say it to you again, if any of y'all are in the Athens area or nearby, I'd try and stop by here and get as many damn photos of this thing as you can while the light's still good and while the bridge is still here, because it could be gone within the next few days or a few weeks, who knows. But I've got my camera with me, so I'm going to do what I came here for. I'm going to get some pictures of this sucker. No real way to get the bridge from the side. Well, maybe there is. Look right here. I'm tempted to walk in the woods a little bit, because like I said earlier, I found a tie plate that may have still had something from the other bridge still on it. So I want to see if I could find something, because there's no way the railroad could have taken everything out. Here's a good side view of the bridge. If they cut all this down temporarily, then you'd get a good view of it. But here it is from the side. That is the Trail Creek Trestle. Across the way there, across the road in the gap for where it was torn down, is where the roadbed continues across another bridge to Winterville. The chemical plant is just a few miles away. About a few minutes away by car. Less so by train if it were still in use. But I'm going to get more photos. I'm filming it because, for all I know, I'm the only other person actually getting anything of recent of this bridge. I haven't seen any photos of it until today. Somebody by the name of Joshua Long, I think, came over here and got pictures. But I'm trying to get video documentation of it before what's here is gone for good. Because once they tear this down, I mean, that's it. My battery is starting to die too, so I hate to say it, but my battery's going. So I'm going to have to cut the stream short, so this is probably going to be the last time I ever see the Trail Creek Trestle in its original form, so to speak. I'll see y'all later.